Hey, stock market sharks. This is Steve, your fellow stock market sharks. And today I'm coming with a coverage of NVIDIA Corporation, ticker NVDA. Guys, the stock is on fire. The stock is on fire, and we are going to dive into the details. What's the reason behind it? What's driving the stock price higher? But before that, the usual ask, guys, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. This is very important for me to build a community and to give me some feedback that what I'm doing, it's basically beneficial, it's useful, it's enjoyable, it creates some value. You would enjoy to see videos like that in the future as well. So if you want to support my channel and if you want to be notified of upcoming videos, then please subscribe. And I promise I will be back with some very interesting, very important content on the stock markets, cryptocurrencies, personal finance, investment, and much more. But right now, let's get started. And don't forget, investing together is always much more fun than investing alone. So let's get started and let's see where this NVIDIA stock price is heading to. So NVIDIA stock price is basically rallying quite considerably in the pre-market. As you can see, guys, we are up almost 6%. So we can just definitely say that the stock is on fire. The stock is on fire. The company, the stock has produced some considerable rally in the upcoming months, but this rally seems to be not over yet. The Q3 earnings report has given another boost to the stock price, and it's just climbing higher and higher. So let's dive into the details of the Q3 earnings. Let's see what came in as a surprise in terms of the numbers reported, and let's investigate how high this stock can still fly. Is there still potential in it? Should you guys consider buying it, or should you start realizing some profits? So we will answer these questions one by one in the upcoming minutes. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet, guys, because your time is precious to me as well. This is going to be just a short summary, but it will provide you with the essential data to formulate your strategy on NVIDIA Corporation stocks. So let's get started. Let's dive into it, and let's see what NVIDIA futures holds. So on this screen, guys, you can see visualization of the earnings from the recent quarters. As you can see, there's a trend for NVIDIA of beating the expectations. So basically, the company is presenting numbers over the expectations in a systematic manner. So there wasn't a miss in any of the last 4 quarters. You can see the green dots here basically are above the blue dots. The blue dots represent the analyst expectation. The green dots are the actual numbers, and these are always exceeding the analyst expectations. So the company was always bringing some upbeat in terms of the report, and this is very probably going to continue. So this seems to be a trend. There can be a very important risk for the future. As you guys know, probably the semiconductor industry players, the companies, are facing some severe chip shortages, and this can prevent the sales from growing in the upcoming quarters. This applies to NVIDIA as well. The company might be facing some severe chip shortage in the future. So this means that it cannot generate as much revenue as it is expected. It cannot generate as many output as it is expected, and that can basically cause that the numbers in the upcoming quarters would be below the estimations. So this ties back on the conditions in the semiconductor field. So you should take this into account, but more on this later. Let's see the financial highlights. So let's take a look at the financial highlights. The revenue came in at 7.1 billion USDs compared to 6.81 billion expected by the analysts. So there's a considerable upbeat here. The earnings per share, or EPS, came in at 1.17 USD versus 1.11 expected. The gaming revenue came in at 3.22 billion USDs versus 3.18 billion USD as expected. And pay attention to this one, because this is very important. Just consider the increase above the expectations. Consider the beat here. The data center revenue, which came in at 2.94 billion USDs versus 2.69 billion USDs as expected. So there's a considerable upbeat here, but I would like to put these numbers into the context. And I would like to also show you the percentage increase compared to the expectation, because that's how the numbers make sense. The extent of the upbeat is very, very important. So let's see the extent of the upbeat. In terms of the revenue, the upbeat was 4% overall. The EPS came in 5% above the expectations. The gaming revenue was just a tiny upbeat 1%. And pay attention to this one, as just highlighted before. The data center revenue was almost a 10% upbeat compared to the analyst expectation. 10%, guys. This can be considered very considerable. And this revenue segment can be one of the main drivers behind the company's growth in the upcoming quarters. Data center revenues are just expanding, are just basically exploding currently. And this adds a very considerable part of the revenue to NVIDIA's total revenue. So this can be a very important catalyst in terms of the future performance of the stock. So the consensus before the earnings was that the main focus would be on NVIDIA's data center revenue, because this is basically the segment with the most dynamic growth currently. This is basically the key driver behind the total performance of the company. So investors will also be focusing on NVIDIA's data center revenue, a key metric of sales generated by a rapidly growing segment of the company's business. NVIDIA makes chips used by data centers. And as you can see, guys, and as we all know, demand for the data center services has increased amid the pandemic, sparking a rise in demand for NVIDIA's chips. Analysts expect the company's data center revenue to accelerate from the previous quarter's rapid growth. So this is a very important number. This is a very positive number, and it projects some dynamic, considerable growth for the future quarters as well, because basically NVIDIA is riding on the back of some very strong, important trends in terms of businesses moving into the cloud. And this would create more and more data centers, and this would increase the demand towards the chips basically produced by the company. So I think that this is a very positive outlook for the future. And guys, now I would like to break down the revenues on the different segments that the company is active in. So as you can see, NVIDIA's total revenue can be broken down on different groups. We have gaming, we have data centers, we have professional visualization, we have the EV industry. So the company is also producing chips for electric car makers. And then we have another segment as well. As you can see, the gaming and the data center segment is the largest one. So this is basically generating the largest stake of the total revenue. Currently, the gaming is basically the biggest stake, but the data center is also coming up very dynamically. And as you can see, by third quarter 2020, the data center revenue is almost there at the gaming, and probably on the long term, this is going to switch, and data center might become the most important revenue driver of the company. But now let's take a look at the current numbers. So as you can see, the company registered an increase in all segments, except of the other segments. So there's a small decrease there. So what we can see is that the data center revenue post a considerable increase. It's just huge what we can see here. So in the fourth quarter of 2020, we were below 1 billion, and now we are at almost 2 billion USDs. So the revenues have almost doubled. The increase is also just marvelous on a year-on-year basis in terms of the gaming, and also on a quarter-to-quarter basis. There is some very considerable improvement there. Just look at those numbers: 2.2 billion compared to 1.6 billion in the previous quarter of 2021. The professional visualization segment is relatively small at the moment, so the company has just entered this segment, but it is growing dynamically there. So this segment is going to be expected to increase in the upcoming quarters. And as you can see, by Q3 2022, it's almost 600 million. So that's really impressive. And also the automaking. In the automaking, we have some constant numbers. So there is not much dynamic expected there, but this field can also become very important on the longer term for NVIDIA. But currently, what's important that the data centers, as basically supported by these numbers, the data center revenues are growing incredibly. So that's going to be the catalyst. That's going to be the key driver. This is going to be the number that the investors are going to closely watch in the upcoming quarters as well. And probably is going to result that the upcoming earnings report would represent an upbeat compared to the expectations, because I think that the expectations are not fully reflected by the current numbers, by the current estimations for NVIDIA. Okay, and now let's take a look at the charts as well. Let's see what we can see, what the technical picture can tell us, what price movements can we predict, and what kind of strategy would pay off in the upcoming weeks, months. Let's dive into it. So this is the technical picture for NVIDIA. As you can see, the company has been moving in a constant uptrend since March this year. We are setting higher highs and higher lows. So there is no exceptions from that. And the company stock is going parabolic almost in the last few months. You can see here almost green candles, no red candles at all. And here a huge green candle, a huge rally taking place. Now we've seen some corrections. So as you see, the stock price has reached the upper resistance of this trend channel. So basically it was bouncing back. And that is basically what has been expected, because after such a considerable rally, it's totally natural that some investors are getting out and taking some profits. So this happens all the time. Trees don't grow to the skies. So we are basically, there's some profit taking here, but it seems that the Q3 earnings report would represent a reinforcement of the uptrend, and probably the stock price is going to test once again the upper resistance line of the channel. So it's very important what happens next. If the stock price would be able to break out of this channel, and basically that would mean a reinforcement of the uptrend. If we are able to set a higher high as a result of the earnings report, or if the stock price is going to retest the upper support line of the channel, but it's going to bounce back again. So we will see that currently everything looks super bullish in terms of the stock price. So we are above all moving averages, as you can see here. And I'm going to take a look at other indicators as well. My personal view is, and this is just my personal view and not a financial advice, that probably as a result of the earnings report, the company's stock price is going to retest this resistance line of the trend channel, the top purple line. But after that, it's going to correct back again. And I will tell you why I'm saying that. Because if we take a closer look, if we take a more comprehensive look at the technical picture, we would see that some indicators tell us NVIDIA stock is oversold. NVIDIA stock is oversold, and basically this suggests that there might be some more considerable profit taking, some more considerable correction. The stock price of the company is already very stretched. In terms of the valuations, it reflects some considerable premium compared to the competitors. So that's also important. And that's why I think that there might be some upside on the short term, but after that, the company stock price has to correct back. Investors need to step on the brakes a little bit. And after that, there would be some good entry points again. There would be some buying pressure that would give a boost to the price. And it's very likely that the long-term uptrend is going to continue. And now let's take a closer look at the technical picture and let's figure out what it tells to us. I'm going to analyze the technical picture using a momentum indicator. This is going to be the relative strength index. This tells us whether the stock is oversold or overbought. Then I'm going to use volume-based indicators to see how the volumes are currently in terms of the buying pressure and the selling pressures. And as a last step, I would use a trend indicator, that is the average directional index, that would tell us, that would show us how strong the trend is currently, how strong this upward trend is. Basically, is there a reinforcement in the trend, or the trend is getting weaker and weaker, and we might accept a correction there as well. So as you can see, guys, and this is basically a warning to all of you who are considering to enter the stock, is basically that the RSI, the relative strength index is above 80, an index, an RSI above 80 means that the stock is heavily oversold. It's heavily oversold. It's very stretched. And as you can see on this chart, at above 80, the stock price was posting some correction. So whenever the RSI is above 80, there was some correction coming. And I think this is going to be the case as well. Probably not in the current earnings session, probably not in the current trading session, because in the current trading session, we might fly as a result of the Q3 earnings, but after that, we would need to correct back a little bit, creating some better entry points. In terms of the volume, we can see a reinforcement of the trend. So whenever the stock price is rising, also the aggregated, the on-balance volumes are rising dynamically. So this is a reinforcement of the trend. This means that there's buying pressure behind the upswings in the stock price. And as you can see, when there is some correction, then the volumes are almost flat. The on-balance volumes are almost flat. So this means that there's not a considerable selling pressure, even in the corrections. So that's just very minor. So this reinforces the positive trend. So that's very good news for us. And the last indicator is a trend indicator, is the average directional index. You can see, guys, that this value is above 50. And when the value is above 50, that's a very, very strong reinforcement of the trend. So this means that the uptrend is very strong at the moment. So this might sound very positive, but you should be a little bit cautious here, because this might represent the end phase, the end stage of the trend. And basically this can be a projection of an upcoming correction. So with those high numbers in terms of ADX, you always have to be very, very careful. So what I see here is that the bullish picture is untouched. The price is relatively stretched at the moment. The Q3 earnings can give a boost to the stock price. We can hit a new high, but the indicators tell us that the company stock price is very stretched, and this projects an upcoming correction in the stock price that would create probably some very good entry points, that would generate some new buying pressure, and that would basically reinforce the continuation of the uptrend. So we can expect that this uptrend is going to be broken, because the fundamentals behind the company are so good that this is basically technically impossible. But given the nature of the stock prices, we can't fly to the sky. The trees don't grow to the skies, and we need some correction. And this is reinforced by the highly stretched values of the technical indicators as well. If we take a look at the valuation metrics of the company, we can see some very high multiples here as well. The price per earnings multiple for the trailing 12 months, it's basically 108 compared to a value of 30 for this sector. So this represents a premium of more than 200%, 256%. Also, in terms of the price to sales, we can see a very extreme number of 33 compared to the sector average of 4.24. So this represents basically a premium of almost 700% for NVIDIA compared to the sector average. So this is also very extreme, I would say, and this is partially indicated by the difference in the growth numbers. Of course, NVIDIA is having some higher growth numbers compared to the other players in the sector. For instance, her revenue growth for NVIDIA is 67%, the sector average is 15%, so there's a premium of more than 300% there, but it's not as much as reflected by the price to sales ratio of the company, which is around 600%. So there's a very important premium in terms of the multiples, and I think that this might be unrealistic, and this have to come down back to the earth. So this is also supporting the idea that probably a price correction is coming in the upcoming period, creating some better entry points. So this was pretty much my review about NVIDIA. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys have a clearer picture of where the stock might be going in the upcoming periods. So guys, before we leave, the usual ask once again, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel to get videos like this one, and to send me some feedback that the videos were enjoyable and you liked it. This is very important for me. I'm just building this community from scratch. It would be much more fun, guys, to trade together than trade alone. So make sure, guys, that you subscribe. Thank you very much for that in advance. I'm coming with some very interesting coverage of stocks, the markets, investments, personal finance, and much more in the upcoming days. But before that, I would like to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for watching my video. Take care, enjoy the day, have a profitable trading session, and see you guys soon. Bye.